As a confidence coach in Calgary who works with businesses and individuals, I have seen that confidence looks different for everyone. In this podcast, we explore confidence through the eyes of our diverse community, redefining it one conversation at a time. Welcome to Confidence Redefined. I'm your host, Alyssa McMasters. Today, we are sitting down with Chris Koch, a motivational speaker who's redefined resilience and pushed the limits of what's possible. Born without arms and legs, Chris grew up in Nanton, Alberta, embracing life with the same zest as any other small-town kid, playing road hockey, stirring up mischief, and helping out on the family farm. From the start, his family encouraged him to see beyond his disability, instilling a mindset of determination and independence. Now, as a passionate traveler, marathoner, and farmer, Chris shares his empowering message: if I can. His story is a testament to the power of perspective, urging audiences to overcome their own challenges and live their dreams. Now, you may recognize Chris from one of his many international speaking opportunities, or you might recognize him from the Oprah Winfrey Show or finishing the New York Marathon in 2024. Welcome, Chris. Hi, Chris. How are you?
Oh, I'm good, Alyssa. How are you doing?
Good. I'm great. Thank you for being here today. I know you're a busy guy with speaking and farming and harvesting right now.
Yep. Yeah, super busy.
But you're here with me.
But I always have time for friends.
Oh, of course.
There you go.
Of course. Well, today we're talking about confidence. This is Confidence Redefined.
Right.
And confidence means something so different to me for every person. And I want to chat about what confidence means to you, and chat a little bit about your life and your experience.
Yep.
Okay. So tell me, you're a farmer, you're a speaker. What came first, farming? Yes?
Well, yeah. Some of my earliest memories as a kid, riding around on the tractors and combines with my grandpa and dad and uncles and stuff like that. So, yeah, I was on a combine or on a tractor before I was even speaking words, I guarantee you.
Yeah.
And the speaking came later, like presentation-wise. People ask me, how long have you been speaking? I'm like, I was about 10 or 11 months old. I don't know if it was mom.
First word was
dad,
juice.
and then it really took off after that. But presenting, that, I mean, I've never been shy around people, really. I mean, when you have no arms and no legs, you stand out. So I've always had attention. I never really shied away from answering the questions or anything like that. And then, I was asked to speak at local schools and local events, in and around Nanton, and doing stuff with the War Amps child amputee program. So, the answer was always yes. If I had a request for a presentation and I had time, I did it, but it wasn't anything that I sought as a full-time gig until, I don't know, like 15 years ago. It just seemed like a really neat way to travel to get to where I'm speaking, and then speak to, travel so I have more to speak about. And that just sort of took off from there.
Yeah, amazing. And you were born without arms and legs. And I think a lot of people will ask you, because you were a farmer, if it was a farming accident. Is that correct?
I've had every question you can think
of. What's the craziest one?
I had one lady ask if it was formaldehyde. I'm like, I think you're thinking thalidomide. Close. You're in the right. But no, I've been asked if it. I mean, there was a guy, my buddy JR and I were in Brazil, and there was a guy that asked if I was missing my arms because I got caught stealing.
Interesting cultural difference. Uh-huh.
Yes, I've obviously farming accident. When I'm down in the States, not everybody, but you get a lot of, are you a veteran? Or people just like, thank you for your service. I'm like, oh, I'm Canadian. I have done nothing for your country. Yeah, and then I like to make things up. But whether little kids, I told a kid at a Subway a little while ago, the mom was having problems getting him to eat his food. And I said, well, when I was about your age, I didn't eat all my food, and look what happened. And she's like, thank you. And then probably one of the darkest ones, I don't know if you're able to keep this in here, but I'm going to tell it anyways. I was speaking in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, and there was an event, and it was kind of like the German beer hall style seating, and there was a couple ladies I was sitting at the same table with, And I can't remember if they were nurses or nursing students or whatever, but the one says, so the reason why you were born like that, was it a medication that your mom took? I said, why are you thinking of thalidomide? And I said, no, that was before my time. I said, actually, my mom and dad are both adopted. And after I was born, they're doing all these tests, blood tests, yada, 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 to try and figure out why I was born like this. And they got the results back, and then my mom and dad found out that they're actually both brother and sister.
And what do the ladies do?
Well, the awkward silence for those girls probably felt like an eternity for them. I was able to keep it together for about, 15, 20 seconds. I'm like, no, I was kidding. I was just born like this. There's no known reason.
Yeah.
And that was too dark for them because we didn't have a second beer together.
Yeah, that was a conversation ender. Fair enough.
Yeah.
My favorite story, one of my favorite stories, is what your grandmother said in the was it the ultrasound, or was it after you were born?
No, it was the day I was born.
Day you were born. So your parents didn't know that you didn't have arms and legs.
Yeah.
You come out.
Dad said it's like amniocentesis and ultrasound and stuff like that. I mean, the technology that they had back in 1979 was obviously not anywhere near as good as it is today. But Dad said they got a checklist in the mail, like a couple weeks or whatever before I was born, and Down syndrome, all clear, arms check, legs check, and then obviously, surprise.
Yeah, surprise.
And
what did your grandma say?
Yeah, so Grandma and Grandpa were living out in Kelowna at the time, and my uncle phoned Grandma and Grandpa to let them know that Mom and Dad had the baby boy, healthy but missing limbs. And Grandma's reaction was that my dad never finishes anything he starts, and it was perfect. Like, it wasn't a tragedy. It wasn't like, oh my goodness, what are we gonna do? This is horrible. It was, all right, it is what it is. Everything's gonna be fine. We'll figure this out, and we're gonna have some good laughs along the way. And that's humor is a big part of my life, whether it's with this or, as you know, in any aspect, in any facet of life. But I think also too, humor is part of what feeds confidence. The ability to laugh at yourself, laugh at your situation.
What I love about that story is that right from the day you were born, your family didn't make you feel strange or different. They just really embraced who you were.
They've done all that since then.
Yeah, when you were born.
At the time, they eased me into it.
Do you think that really helped with your confidence? Because you are a very confident person. Do you think that helped, is having a family who supported you?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I've seen other kids that are in similar situations with various disabilities and stuff like that, or differently abled, or limb differences, whatever you want to call it. And, the parents are so protective of that child and guard that child, which it's not to say that my parents weren't protective, but, it wasn't this instance where I was their poor little boy who was born missing arms and legs. It was just Chris. And even my brother will talk about, people will be talking to him about, oh, it's so awesome that your brother can drive combines and tractors and do all that stuff. And blah, blah, blah. It's just what you do. And I, even just in my presentations, I thought the part that people would love to hear would be the travels, but they want to hear about the farming. I'm like, it's so easy to run those things. Stevie can run those things.
Stevie can run those things.
Yeah.
Although last year he did wreck a burger combine. So.
Well, as long as it was, it happens.
It happens here and there.
I've never wrecked one myself.
That's great, but
You've
heard
I
it
have,
happens.
but not a combine.
Yeah.
But no, it was just. Obviously, the fact that I'm missing arms and legs, it's a pretty prevalent part of my life, and it's a pretty obvious thing. It's nothing that I can, gloss over or hide, but it's not my defining characteristic, I guess.
Yeah, and I think that goes to show that nothing, no one thing is someone's defining characteristics,
Absolutely
right?
not.
We're all so multidimensional and dynamic. So yeah, early life, your family is so fun, so supportive, and just doesn't treat you any differently. You're just Chris. That helped with your confidence, but now you farm, and that's what you do for your kind of upbringing. How did you switch into speaking, and who reached out to who, or did you reach out to somebody else?
Yeah, it was a pretty organic thing. Like I said, I was speaking for local events and schools at grade 8, grade 9, grade 10, doing stuff with the war amps. And I actually shied away from moving into that career path. And I don't really know why I was apprehensive or hesitant at first. I mean, I wanted to get into broadcasting, love sports, and that was going to be my way to participate in sports, is cover sports. And so anyways, fast forward, I'm being asked to speak at these events, and I took a trip to Europe. I backpacked through Europe for 3 months, and it was right around that same time I was thinking, okay, I think I'd like to pursue this as a full-time gig. I'm asked to speak at these things every once in a while. I'm farming. Let's see if I can make a go of it. And like I said earlier, it was just a way to fund travel to get to where I'm speaking, and travel so I have more to speak about. And it was pretty serendipitous. It was almost like the stars were aligning for me to do this, because I booked my flights, and I didn't tell anybody I was booking the flights. And Jen Place from Nanton, she was organizing it was a Government Financiers of Alberta, and it was at the Deerfoot at a casino, and that she was looking for a speaker and thought that it might be something I'd be interested in doing. And I told her, I said, don't tell anybody, but I said, I'm doing this trip to Europe. This conference is going to be right after I get back. I'm going to have some neat material and stuff to talk about. And I said, I feel like this is lining up perfectly. I think this is what I'm supposed to be doing. And so that's how that really got started. And then, you're speaking at a couple schools out in BC, and you're, spending way more money than what you're making, hoping to, knock a few presentations out of the park. And then they, word spreads around, and it was growing slowly. And then a nice little video that John Chester did at Apricot Lane Farms that landed on the Oprah Winfrey Network. That's when things really took off for me.
Yeah, what was that like? So did Oprah call you?
Yeah, no, I have not heard anything from Oprah, from the network at all. So it was my buddy John, and I'd known him before he had the farm down in Southern California, and I actually went to go visit his farm. And while I was there, he's like, I would love to get the camera out and shoot some stuff if you're okay with it. I'm like, yeah, no, that's fine. And after about 3.5 days of filming, he's like, I have an idea in my mind of something I want to put together, and I want to pitch it to the Oprah Winfrey Network. If you're okay with it. I'm like, yeah, don't go for it. And he goes, I don't know. He's like, because people like Nick Vujicic and Kyle Maynard are, two speakers that are also missing arms and legs. They've already been on there, so maybe they're like, the whole Norm and no leg thing, that's just old news. Anyways, he pitched it to him, and they loved it. And I remember I was on the tractor in Saskatchewan farming for Mike and Joe Sears, and my phone just started blowing up. And that video that he made, Oprah Winfrey had shared it on her Facebook and on her website. And when Oprah says, hey, you should check this guy out, people tend to listen. And yeah, it was crazy. I'm in, Torquay, Saskatchewan, and my phone is blowing up like, hey, we'd love to have you speak in Oklahoma City. We'd love to have you speak in whatever. And I was like, holy crap, this is, wow.
What did that feel like?
Oh, in anything I do, maybe you're excited and stuff like that, but.
And I bet, like, from my perspective, I'd be like, oh, nice. Like, this is, like, now I'm going to get the gigs, right?
Yeah, no, it was, and that was, yeah, it's still, I can't even describe the feeling. It was just, well, I'm too busy trying to keep the tractor in the field, but, the phone's blowing up. You're like, holy smokes, like, what's going on here?
Yeah, and I think what I love so much about your message is your whole message of a lot of your talks are, if I can. Yeah. If you can travel Europe alone, if you can hitchhike across Canada, if you can be a full-time farmer, if you can speak, why can't everybody else, right? Yeah. If someone without arms and legs can do all these things, what's holding everybody else back? And it really makes everybody think, yeah, like, what is holding me back? Have you got any feedback from people maybe after a conversation that will have messaged you being like, I did the damn thing. Like, after I saw you, I did it. Yeah,
I've had, it's been a pretty cool journey, and I forget how long I've been doing this. There's a family from Nanton that moved up to Edson, and their oldest daughter graduating high school, and she remembered me speaking at A.B. Daly School in Nanton when she was in kindergarten, or grade 1 or something like that, and she wanted me to come up and speak at her grad, and then I ended up speaking at all the schools, and it's like, holy crap, like something that I said to a 6-year-old 12 years ago still has stuck. That's pretty cool.
That's very cool.
And then my favorite, proudest moment, I guess, is I was speaking, but I'll be vague on some of the details. But I was speaking down in the States, and it was a middle and high school, and it was a huge school, so each grade individually. And I had just finished speaking to the 8th graders, and there was a young girl in a wheelchair who has cerebral palsy. And, so all these kids come up and I'm answering all these questions, and then, there's always a couple that kind of hang off to the side. And you get pretty good at noticing that and trying to answer these questions with these kids here. But, make sure, like, I see you. We'll chat. And so afterwards, she's like, I don't know if you're a man of faith, but she goes, I firmly believe that God brought you here for a reason. She said, I just told my parents, had a conversation with my parents like 2 days ago, and told them that I don't want to live anymore. She said, I'm tired of being disabled. I'm tired of people's comments. I'm tired of everything being harder. I'm tired of all of it. And she said, my disability is severe enough that I can't even take my own life. She goes, that's how out of control of my own life I feel. And I mean, somebody drops something like that on you, it just takes everything completely out of you. And I said, first of all, you're talking, which is great. I said, keep talking. I said, keep talking to your parents, your pastor at your church, counselors at school, psychologists, whatever. And I said, I don't do this very often, but I said, here's my phone number. I said, you text, you call, anytime. I said, I don't care if it's 2 o'clock in the afternoon or 2 o'clock in the morning, you reach out. If I don't get back to you immediately, know that I will get back to you as soon as possible. And we talked a little bit more, and then I heard from one of her teachers about a week later, and they're like, she has done a complete 180. She's a completely different person. And we kept in touch, and I still, to this day, hear from her every once in a while, or I'll reach out, like, hey, how you doing? Hope you're doing well. But the kicker of this story was I was training for one of the marathons, and so I'm out on my board, and my phone is just buzzing like crazy, and so I stopped to make sure it wasn't an emergency. And it was a bunch of text messages from her. And one was a video of her walking across stage, getting her high school diploma. I lost her right there. Like, that was just like, so if that's the only person I've ever impacted on that level, this whole thing is worth it. I mean, there's been other feedback, but that one is just, that one's a pretty special one to me.
How rewarding is that? We're both tearing up a little bit. Well, I am.
I don't cry.
you don't cry. I am. That's so beautiful. And when I think about like if I can, I think about someone like myself who is able-bodied, and how much that message means to me. Thinking of someone who is disabled, having that hope and seeing you thriving, and seeing you living a totally full life full of friends and awesome experiences and traveling, running marathons. I mean, skateboarding marathons. Doing marathons. Yeah. It's just such a beautiful message. Now I want to ask you about, let's kind of go back to Nanton as well. Yeah. Your family's great. Then you grow up in a school in a small town, and sometimes small towns are kind of known for not being as inclusive. Yeah. Was that your experience?
I couldn't have asked, and I'm not just saying this because this is something that you're supposed to say about your own town, but I can say without a shadow of a doubt, not a word of a lie, 100%, I could not have asked for a better community, a better town, a better family, a better group of friends to have grown up around. It was, everybody knows everybody, and that goes back to like we were talking about earlier, how my mom and dad approached the whole thing. You know, it wasn't like this fragile little, handicapped kid that needs to be protected. It was, just get out there and do it. And that's also kind of a, farm, ag, blue collar mentality. Like, get off your ass and do it. But, everybody knows everybody. And that goes to the confidence. Unfortunately, people who do get bullied. Unfortunately, people who are on the receiving end of not so nice treatment. Unfortunately, they do lack confidence, and confidence is a tough thing to teach. It might even be an impossible thing to teach. It's just something that you have to figure out, and each person is different too, to figure out how to help that person develop their confidence. But I was confident, and I think am confident. And I honestly believe that confidence on the inside projects on the outside, so I don't come across as a vulnerable target to bully or tease or, take advantage of or whatever. Are there people that do say rude or ignorant things? Yes. But, on the rare occasion it does happen, it's like, really? That's the best you could come up with? Seriously? So that helps. And then, again, just the support I had, that helped build that confidence, helped create that confidence. And also, too, I wasn't able to get away with stuff. If I did try and play I can't do that, I don't have arms and legs, like, no. Get off your ass and do it. Mr. Comstock in gym class. No, get out there and don't try and play the lazy card, or try and be lazy and play the amputee card. I know what you can do. So there's a lot of accountability there as well. So I always try and brag on Nanton every chance I get, and right here is no different. I love my hometown in Nanton, and I could not have asked for a better place. There's a lot of people that say that their hometown is the best place in the world. They're wrong. It's Nanton.
Beautiful. Do you have, and again, I'm so happy that you didn't face bullying, but do you have any advice for someone who is being bullied?
Well, yeah, it's a two-pronged approach. One, to my message to people who are bullying and I don't think bullying is such a prevalent thing at the moment, but what I think is on the rise is just a lack of compassion. And, so my advice my words to somebody who's maybe, slinging mud, is life is challenging enough. We've gone through a lot of stuff in the last 4 or 5 years we all know what we've all gone through. So why do you want to pile it on even thicker? And the other side of it is there are going to be haters. It's, to think you're going to go through life without somebody offending you, without somebody hurting your feelings, without saying something that you don't agree with, you're pretty naive. So there are those people out there. There are haters. There are going to be people who are going to say mean and ugly things. So you have to develop that thick skin and realize that, for that one person that is being a jerk, there's hundreds, thousands of people that have been absolutely incredible. Unfortunately, it's those moments that stick out, and get caught up in the mind, and you can have for the most part, pretty good day. And, one person does one thing that really ticks you off. When you go home and you're having, supper at the supper table and you're talking about how your day, that's going to be the one thing that you bring up. Not the 99 people that were anywhere from just average to absolutely incredible. It's that one person that cut you off in traffic or flipped you the bird or, stole your lunch.
Yeah. The one thing the exercise that I tell people to try when they have those moments, like when someone says one negative thing, even though 1,000 people tell you how great you are in different ways, is to really write down a kudos log and write down all the things that people said that were nice, so that when you get that negative comment, you can go remind yourself. Because sometimes, again, like you said, the nice things go into the back of the brain vault, and then the mean things stay right in the center. Yep. So if we can kind of start combating that, it can be really helpful to read through them. So thank you for sharing that.
Yep.
Yeah. Now, again, let's talk about you traveling Europe alone. So I also solo backpacked, and it was so intimidating for me, and it was so scary. And I remember like pulling the trigger, and I was like, what am I doing? And I'm able-bodied. So how...
Show off.
I know. You want to see them?
High five.
High five, baby. So how did you feel when you like bought that plane ticket? Like, were you like, I got this, or was there a part of you that was like, whoo, I don't know?
I mean, as you know, every single thought runs through your mind. Every single scenario that could potentially play out goes through your mind. And I remember getting on that plane, and plane takes off, and I got bumped up to first class on that flight, which I really needed the leg room so I could stretch out and just really enjoy the flight. And I had my glass of Prosecco or whatever it was. And then I got thinking, I had 8 hours to think. And I remember thinking, oh, what have I done? Like, have I just embarked on the worst mistake of my life? Like, what if on day one, I'm boarding around London and somebody's like, oh, here's a perfect person to rob. I get rolled for all my money. And then I got to call back home and be like, hey, can you book me a ticket home? Because I just got robbed and I got nothing left. And then I thought, and this is something that I've always tried to remind myself, and I preach to others as well. I'm way more afraid of regret than failure. Failure is not a bad thing. And again, to go back to confidence, that is one of the best confidence building tools out there, is to be comfortable and be okay with failing, with making a mistake. I mean, the only way it's a failure is if you try once and it doesn't work, and then you just walk away from it and never go back there again. It's that whole, fall down 9 times, get up 10 type of mentality. So yeah, I jokingly tell people, like, I'm a perfect person to rob. I'm unarmed. No legs, so it's a nice, clean getaway. But the absolute opposite happened on that trip. So 3 months in Europe, and I don't know how much money I was actually given, but I'd be boarding from Buckingham Palace to Trafalgar Square, from the Louvre to the Eiffel Tower in Paris. And people would literally start chasing me down the street, like, here, I want to give you this. I'm like, no, I'm good. I don't need the money, but thank you. No, a lot of times, if they kept insisting, I said, okay, well, thank you very much. I appreciate it. And more often than not, sometimes in perfect English and sometimes in very broken English, I've just been going through a rough patch in my life, and just things just haven't been going my way. And I see you with a big smile on your face, just, doing your thing. And I just want to, here's €5, grab yourself a pint. Here's 20 euro, dinner's on me or whatever. And that's when I realized, and we talked about this earlier, 99.9% of the people you ever encounter are going to be anywhere from average to absolutely incredible. It's that small fraction of a percentage that you hear about in the news, or that sticks in the front of your brain instead of burying it in the back of the brain where they belong. It was like, I probably well over $400-500 in the whole 3 months that I was there. And I remember when I got home, the travel club at the JT Foster School, I made sure that they got that money, because I appreciate the sentiment, but I don't want to keep that money. I'd rather pay that forward.
Yeah. And we often think, again, like, what's the worst thing that's going to happen? But what if we switch to think, like, what's the best thing? Yeah. What if I have an awesome 3 months? What if everybody's actually very kind? Do you have any like big experiences that like really stand out to you, like a moment that like you were like, wow, these people went like above and beyond, or that you were like, I just feel like I'm like so welcome here?
There was so many different examples of people just being so incredibly overtly kind. There was one guy I was in Paris, and I was on my way to the Louvre, and it was when I'm boarding, I usually run warm, so I don't need a big warm jacket. And this guy was like, no, you need to have this jacket. It was a brand new jacket, but the sleeves were long. And I'm like, no, it's okay. I'm warm enough. He said, no, you need to be warmer. I'm actually quite warm. This is sweat on my forehead. But he insisted on having this jacket, and he quickly, I can't remember what he had on him, but he quickly like did a quick temporary alteration of the sleeves, and the thing fit me perfectly. And like just little stuff like that, and then also too, like, you know, the bad things, you know, what if something goes wrong? Well, what if something goes right? And, you know, powering through the less desirable moments in life, the more challenging times. And one story there's many stories that I tell, but I remember when I was in Paris, it was just before Christmas, and it was cold, and it rained a lot. And so it was a matter of trying to get outside and power tour Paris when there wasn't rain. And I remember I headed to the Louvre, and then I was going from the Louvre to the Eiffel Tower, and it started pouring rain. And but you've been to Paris, so have you seen? You can see the Eiffel Tower from the Louvre, and the damn thing looks
And you think
like
it's closed.
just around the corner. It's not. And I remember boarding. I was on a pretty long downhill. I hit a little rock, wiped out, cut my arms open, soaking wet, grumpy, tired, hating Paris. And I get to the Eiffel Tower finally, and I was like, oh, it's just a big metal structure. And I think I got there at like 9:58, because on the top of the hour, every hour, the Eiffel Tower lights up in this sparkling light show. And I was like, holy crap, that's actually quite beautiful. I was like, okay, Paris isn't so bad. I'm not quite as grumpy. And I like my new jacket, so.
That's so lovely. I love that. Now you say you're boarding, and for anybody who doesn't know, you ride a skateboard around, and you decided that prosthetics were not for you. Yeah. So we can just use skating around the city whenever around. So do you want us to stop and give you $5 for a beer, or do you want us to wave at you?
Wow, I mean,
You're like, stop and give me money.
Hey, I mean, I like beer that I didn't have to buy, but no, I mean, it's any form of generosity. Even yesterday, I was on my phone trying to, I was on the map app or something like that, and this lady came up. She's like, unfortunately, I don't have any cash on me, but I'm going to Tim Hortons. Can I get you something? I'm like, no, I'm good. I'm just, I was waiting for an Uber. That's what I was doing. And she said, I am so sorry. I didn't mean to. I'm like, no, I'm not offended by that. Like, you're just trying to do something kind. And that's one thing that I try and caution people about who maybe do get a little offended or bent out of shape when somebody tries to offer to help or tries to give them money is people are just trying to be kind, and you are discouraging kindness. So yeah, I'll always say no. And it also too, culturally, and I worked at WestJet for a while, and one of the guys that I worked with is I can't remember, somewhere in the Middle East, and he said a lot of times, he says, if somebody, and these are his words, not mine, he says, if a brown person tries to give you money, he says you can say no the first time, but he says after the first no, if they insist, you're actually offending them by not taking it. And he says a lot of time, if you pay close attention, they'll give you that $5 or €10 or whatever, and they'll kind of mutter a bit of a prayer underneath their breath. So he says, you're kind of obligated to take it. And again, I've traveled, I was in Nepal, and that would happen all the time. And then people give me like 20 rupee, 10 rupee, 50 rupee, whatever, which, exchange that into Canadian money, that's like giving somebody 25 cents. Mm-hmm. But that's a pretty significant amount of money for them. And I mean, you feel horrible accepting that. So let's say I was in Nepal Ganj or Bardia National Forest, or pick a town in Nepal. And over the course of the 5 days you were there, you were given 150 rupee. I'd just take that 150, turn it into 400, go to a store and buy a big bag of rice, drop it off into the village, or drop some school supplies off or something like that and pay it forward. So yeah, be kind. And that's something that is somewhat getting lost in society right now, is just that simple, nod and smile and say hello to that person that you cross on the street, instead of, head down and ignoring everybody that's around you, or just eyes on the phone the whole time you're on the train or on the bus or whatever. And see what's around you, because there's a lot of great people out there.
There's a lot of great people, and be kind. And what do you say about people who like, they're like, well, I just don't want to offend anybody, so I just don't want to say anything?
People just need to lighten up a little bit. But, you know, and like I said earlier, in no shape, way, or form do I want to discourage anybody from being kind. I think it's, I mean, but call it a love language. And some people's love language is gifts. And, you know, I don't want to upset anybody because they were just trying to be kind, and I don't want to discourage anybody from being kind. Beautiful.
Now, you have done, again, you climbed to base camp of Mount Everest, is that correct?
No,
that's not correct.
We trekked partway to base camp.
So you started trekking to base camp of Mount Everest.
Just went to Nanton Bazaar, which is the first acclimatization point for people that are going to base camp and potentially summiting Everest. So you go there, spend 24 hours, get used to the altitude, and then continue on up. And that's actually for the most part, the steepest part of the trek. The rest is a lot longer and more casual. So, yeah.
Wow.
I would love to go to base camp, though. That's something I'd love to do.
Very cool. And how many marathons have you now participated in?
I've done 17 marathons.
17 marathons.
Yeah.
So you're doing all these awesome things. How... like, is there a specific thing that gave you the confidence to be like, I'm just going to do it?
Well, again, goes back to how I was raised. If I wanted to play baseball, or if I wanted to golf, or if I wanted to ski, you know, to mom and dad's reaction was never, well, I don't know, it might be tough, or for somebody with arms and legs, it could be dangerous. It was, all right, let's figure out a way to make it happen. So I was never held back from doing anything. So I've always been fairly, you know, just jump in the net will appear type of person in that respect. And also, too, doing this job, I don't want to just be talking a big talk. I don't want to just be, you know, telling the story of that one thing that I did 5, 10, 15 years ago. I want to be, you know, doing a presentation like I did on Friday up in Edmonton. Be like, oh, and currently I am training for New York City Marathon and Philadelphia Marathon that are 3 weeks apart in November. Or, you know, I just did this or whatever. I want people to collect as many experiences as they possibly can. I want people to continuously, you know, strive for more, raise the bar in their own lives. And you can't expect people to do that, or, you know, encourage people to do that if you yourself aren't doing the same. So, yeah, I want to be putting my money where my mouth is.
Yeah. And what I'm hearing is like the commitment to things and committing regardless of anything. And then what I'm also
single, so I'm not that committed.
He's single. And like not making excuses. And I think so many of us make excuses. Well, I'm tired, or well, I can't do that because XYZ. I can't do that. Who am I to be doing that? And what I'm hearing from you is like not making excuses is what gave you the confidence.
Oh, for sure. And a marathon is a great example of, and you'll hear athletes talk about, you know, it's 90% physical, or 90% mental, 10% physical. And it's true in anything in life. It doesn't matter if it's hockey or marathons or anything you're doing in life. It's up here. It's 6 inches of space between the ears. So to use the marathon as the example, the mind tells you that you're too sore, you're too tired, you don't have enough gas left in the tank. The body is capable of doing some pretty incredible stuff. And I tell people, anybody can do a marathon. You might not be smashing out a 2 hour 10 elite marathon time. It might be 5, 6 hours. You might not be running it. You might be doing it on a longboard or a wheelchair or a hand cycle or whatever. But it's about getting across that finish line and celebrating that win for yourself. And I've heard elite athletes who are running it, under 2.5 hours. Like, my hats off to those people that are slugging it out for 5.5 hours. It's like, I did 2 hours and 17 minutes of cardio. These guys who, in some cases are carrying a lot bigger body are, doing cardio for 5.5 hours. It's like, that's actually quite impressive. And one of the DC Marine Corps marathon that I did, there was a lady, and I'll always remember what she said, because she's, and these are again her words. I don't know how much she was weighing at the time, but she said again, her words, I was tired of being fat. And she said, one of my girlfriends was over, and she said, I told my girlfriend, I'm going to do a marathon. Do you want to do it with me? And her girlfriend's like, you don't even like walk into the kitchen to go to the fridge. How are you going to do a marathon? She goes, I'm tired of it. I'm going to do it. So she did a 5K, and then she did a 10K, and then she did a half, and then she did a full. She's done like 40 some marathons, all the Disney marathons that you can do, the Disney or the Pluto, the Goofy, the Donald, the whatever. She's done all of those. And she said, me and my girlfriends are literally just fast enough that, they're literally picking up the barricades behind us. And she says, we're dressed up in silly outfits and we're laughing and joking the whole time. And I think she dropped like 150 pounds or something like that. And so that's just an example of literally anybody can run a marathon, and it has nothing to do with physical ability, athleticism, arms and legs. It's this up here.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing. Now, I'm interested to know, what are the most common questions you get?
Oh, wow. I mean, any Q&A I do, it's usually the same bank of questions. Every once in a while, you'll get one. Oh, I've heard that one before. Well, kids, how do you eat? How do you get dressed? Actually, the cutest, my niece Isabel, when she's about 4 or 5 years old, I took her to the Calgary Zoo, and we were waiting for the C train, and somebody must have walked by and said something or whatever, or looked at me, and she noticed it, and Isabel, she goes, Uncle Chris, why do people ask all the questions? And I said, well, what do you mean? She goes, people always ask, how does he eat? How does he get dressed? How does he get into a truck? And I said, wow, they're curious. They've never seen somebody without arms and legs, so they wonder how I do things. I said, well, when they ask you, obviously kids in a kindergarten class, I said, when they ask you, what do you tell them? You just do's. and it's, then those are the most common questions. How do you do, how do you climb up into the tractor? Well, you just climb up the ladder. And there's a lot of those things I don't really even think about it. I just, in the words of Isabel, I just do's.
You just do's.
There's also a lot of the, how do you stay positive? Like, well, I'm not positive all the time. Not always having good days, but I am lucky. I'm an inherently positive person. It's not that there haven't been ruts or funks or challenging times, but most of it is good days, and on the bad days, just try and concentrate on the positives instead of the negatives. Sometimes you have to dig a little deeper. Sometimes it's really tough to see the forest through the trees, but you gotta find it, because in all the crap, there's still some good stuff out there.
Yeah. And I was actually going to ask you, on those bad days, what do you do to be able to bring yourself back to that positivity?
My screensaver on my phone is my 3 nephews and 2 nieces. Look at that. Can't help but smile. Spend time with them, go hang out with my brother, go fencing with him or whatever, and joke around and, laughing so hard that your stomach and your cheeks are sore. These ones. Getting on my board and going for a board. Getting the body moving, blood flowing, oxygen pumping to the brain. It might not make things go away, but at least you're thinking things through in a little clear frame of mind. Things don't seem quite as bleak or insurmountable. And letting in the little things. Like this morning, I was out for a board, and, beautiful sunrise, nice pink, red sky over the Bow River, and just letting that in. And there's times where, like I said, you got to dig a little deeper, and those sunrises and sunsets just don't have as much color, and those, nice things that people say and do, they don't really sink in quite as deep. And the negative things that some people say cuts a little deeper. So you have to work a little harder at it, but nothing's permanent. And again, when you have good people around you, whether it be family, friends, I think you end up having the confidence to realize that this isn't something that's going to last. And you also have the confidence to realize that you have the ability to get through it. And, you were talking about if I can, being, if a guy with arms and legs can, work on the farm or do marathons or whatever, you can also apply that to your own life. And, you think of the things in your own life that you've overcome, the challenges you've faced and came out on top. If I can overcome that stuff, the stuff that's ahead of me is, so we all have our moments in life that we can, and we can still be humble about it, but look back like, oh, shit, yeah, that's pretty cool that I did that. I'm proud of myself. I'm going to pat myself on the back for that one and use that as fodder and fuel moving forward. Yeah.
What is the best piece of advice you've ever received?
The best piece of advice I've ever received, Sherry Meyerhofer. She's a prime example of a power woman. She's a lawyer. She's from Claresholm. She was living in Nepal, and she essentially helped Nepal redraft their constitution. But I don't remember what I was all bent out of shape over, but she basically said, like, everybody has the right to ask. I think somebody was asking me to cover the bill for something or something. I was like, well, why do they assume that I'm going to pay for everything? And she said, everyone has the right to ask anything. You have the right to ask me anything. You can ask me any favor. I can ask you of any favor. I have that right to ask. And the other person has the right to say yes or no. So to get bent out of shape for somebody asking you a favor or whatever, like, don't take that so personally. So that was, I don't know, for whatever reason, that one's really stuck with me.
That's a really interesting one.
And kind of, you expand that. I mean, quit expecting so much of people. Expect high things of yourself. Set your own boundaries, rigorous and high standards for yourself. And make sure you hit those bars that you've set for yourself, but let people set their own limits and their own, bars, and that way people don't disappoint you or upset you. Yeah,
that's what I was going to say about boundaries. Is people have the right to ask or do what they'd like, but it's up for us to set those boundaries and say what's acceptable and what's not acceptable.
Yeah, like people like, how do you go to the bathroom? I'm like, well, really? I go and I sneak into your house and I take some of your socks and I use that to wipe and then I put them back later. No, it doesn't matter how I go to the bathroom. Mm-hmm. But people have the right to ask, and I have the right to say, well, I'm not going to go into detail, but I've got it covered.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What is the most important thing?
Oh, the most important thing? Happiness is the most important. And you can have all the money in the bank. You can have, all the fancy things in the world. And I guess I've traveled to, I've traveled to some beautiful places, and I've traveled to some rougher countries and been to some tougher areas of the world. Guatemala and Cambodia and Nepal, and people by our standards have very, very, very little, and they're the kindest, happiest people out there. Mm-hmm. And then you go board around Rodeo Drive, and you smile and nod to people, and they just head down. Well, there was one morning in Kelowna. I woke up stupid early, beautiful morning, and there was 3 different people that I had interactions with. The first one was this kid who working for the city picking up garbage, and he was the happiest person I have ever encountered, working at 5:10 in the morning picking up garbage, and we had a good chat. And then a little bit later, I was over by the Safeway, and there was these 2 or 3 people on the side of the street smoking crack, and they offered me some crack, and I said, no, I'm good, thanks. I don't do crack before noon. But they were nice and generous, and obviously homeless, and obviously suffering through addiction and stuff like that, but they were super kind. And then about 20 minutes later, there was a fairly attractive lady with her yoga mat underneath her arm on her way to an early morning yoga class. And I said, morning, smiled, nod, and just absolutely nothing. I'm like, the person who has on the surface every reason to be happy and kind was not the most kind and wasn't the happiest. And the people who had nothing were the happiest. So yeah, that's happiness. Long answer short.
So Chris, you have like a really prevalent online presence. You post a lot online, and I'm sure with that comes a little bit of backlash, a little bit of weird comments, a little bit of negativity. How do you combat that and make sure that you kind of keep yourself like grounded and realizing that it's just like online trolls?
Yeah, 95% of the time, let's say, it's, in one ear, out the other, or, read, delete, or just leave it alone and not even touch it. Because, for every one bad person, there's lots of incredible people. I guess where online cuts a little bit deeper is people are a lot more bold because they're hiding behind the anonymity of the keyboard, and also people are so incredibly opinionated on everything now. And there was one, I posted a photo of myself and a little kid named Owen from Chicago who was born missing arms and legs, and long story short, ended up meeting the family in Chicago, and he's the cutest kid in the world, and he is basically a carbon copy of me. His arms are off right about the same length, and he has a partial leg, but that's on the left side instead of the right side. And I had this picture of holding him, and in the description of the post, I clearly stated that, met them online and had a chance to meet the family in person, and I'm, great to be somebody that Owen could look up to, and I've become honorary Uncle Chris, and there's a lot of people that, without reading, assumed that was my child and took after me, saying that I shouldn't be having kids. How dare I, pass along my disease and blah, 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 blah. And this one, I feel like it must have been shared on some like eugenics Facebook pages or whatever, because there was a lot. And I had to just turn off social media for a couple of days and get away from it. And I was pretty upset about it. I can handle it. I can turn the other cheek. I can, let it roll off like water off a duck's back. But it was a 2.5-year-old boy that was involved in that. And I don't want Owen to have to deal with that crap. I don't want his parents to have to deal with that crap. And, it did affect me. Mm-hmm. I'd be lying if it didn't. But, people are just going to ask stupid things and say stupid things. And it goes back to, I'd rather it goes back to the whole, if you can't say anything nice, don't say anything at all. Mm-hmm. But, you do need to have that thick skin. And it bothers me when, people write crappy stuff on, Jeannie Bouchard's Facebook page, or, people lace into, I don't know, Connor Bedard. Like, really? Why? I don't get it.
Yeah, it's the keyboard warrior, and people feel a lot more bold when they're not saying things in person and they're not held accountable. Yeah. And it's not our job to hold people accountable either. However, it's also like not acceptable to be getting those comments. So when you do get those comments, do you just kind of delete them and move on? Or do you have like a method that you use to be like, help yourself kind of work through it?
Yeah, sometimes I'll just delete it. Sometimes I will clap back. A lot of those, I think you just need to read it and then think about your response instead of going straight to it, because chances are the initial comment they made is they saw the photo and they quickly jumped to conclusions and spat that out. And also, too, like Mike Tyson says, there's a lot of people online saying a lot of things that have never had to deal with somebody punching them in the mouth and hold them accountable for that, too. So,
that.
Yeah. I think the part where I get most defensive is I don't want that happening to Owen or other kids, younger kids that are in a similar situation, or people that maybe don't have that confidence to be able to say to themselves, that's one person, and that's, in the worst case scenario, somebody's had enough, and that one comment is that person's tipping point. Do you want to have that on your conscience? No. So don't say ugly stuff.
Yeah. And now we talked about confidence in ourselves, but let's talk about confidence in other people. Now that like you see the nasty out there on social media, less common, you get it in person, some nasty comments. How do you have the confidence in people to trust them to help you through Europe, to help you through your marathon? How do you trust people?
Yeah, well, probably the greatest amount of trust I've put in people is with my bank card. Pretty much every bank machine is up to high for me, or if it is low enough, you put the card in, and when it spits it out, it just gives you the little corner to grab onto. So I have the most well-known PIN number in the world, I guarantee you. If you ever figure out my PIN number, Bobby, my brother, has the exact same PIN, so you can clean him out, not me. But yeah, I have punched in my password on my phone and how much money I need help pulling out, because I'm at a bank machine in Beijing, China, at the airport, and the person I'm talking to speaks no English, and my Mandarin is horrible. I've flagged down random people on the sidewalk, but hey, can I help you? Can you help me? Yeah, and I have not been robbed yet. Knock on wood, it never happens. But yeah, it's like that's a pretty big leap of confidence in other people right there, and it hasn't backfired. And that's a great example that I need to, remind myself of. For for that one or few people that have had ugly things to say on that post with Owen, or that one person that just couldn't resist saying something ugly when they passed by me, when they were leaving Wendy's. I've had, I don't know how many people that I've entrusted with my PIN number and my bank card, and I've not been robbed. That's pretty good, photo.
Good track record.
Amount of kindness right there. And well, the other one too, Philadelphia. I love that city. Philadelphia, the most passionate sports fans probably in North America, and they pride themselves on being jerks. There's a whole song that the football fans sing about being jerks. Yet, Philadelphia Airport, not a word of a lie, was the highest ratio of people coming up to me at the luggage carousel saying, if you need help getting your bag off there, just let us know. Or just wandering around downtown Philly and just chatting with people and them giving you advice or suggestions on to where to eat or where the best Philly cheesesteak sandwich is. So yeah, there's amazing people out there, even in the cities that are mean sports fans, passionate sports fans. They're still really, really kind at the core.
Yeah. Now, through this whole conversation, humor, you're hilarious. You use humor a lot. I'm interested to know if that is a big value of yours, and if that helps increase your confidence.
Huge value. Humor gets you through challenging days. If you can't laugh at life, what can you laugh at? My grandma pointed that out day one, saying that Dad never finished anything he started. But it's a great icebreaker. When people first meet me, they're not too sure how to react, how to respond. So if I can crack somebody's worried about me getting on the plane, or, if how am I going to get in the seat, or, would a seat closer to the front of the plane be easier? Like, I don't care. As long as there's lots of leg room, I'm happy. And then there's that panic. Like, is he messing with us? Is he serious? So yeah, it puts people at ease. And then I think also to be confident enough in yourself to poke fun at yourself. I don't think you can be throwing around humor too much if you can't take a joke or poke a little fun at yourself. And there's some people that are really good at roasting others, but they don't do well when it comes firing back at them. So, and I think that takes confidence to know where my weaknesses lie and be able to poke fun at that. And I think also too, if you have a self-deprecating sense of humor, you get a little more leeway with joking around with others. And people put a lot of pressure on themselves to be perfect.
Yeah.
To never mess up, to never make a mistake. Nobody's perfect.
Yeah.
So, and all the things that I talk about and have talked about and all the things that I preach, am I really, really good at it day in, day out? No. There's days where I falter. There's days where I have to check in with my own words. And I think the key is, on the days where you didn't show up as the best version of yourself, the day where you just weren't feeling it, or the day that you screwed up miserably, as long as nobody was seriously hurt, you come back and you make amends for it. You come back and you have a better day tomorrow than you did today. And, it's just, you make a mistake, you have a bad day, don't let that spiral out of control. And, that's because it's one day.
So I think people will probably look at you and they're like, oh my gosh, like he's just so cool. You're welcome.
Nobody was.
You're welcome.
Where the hell are you picking
But he's
this
very
up?
cool. He's very, has it all together. Like he's really like confident and totally sure of himself. What do you say to that? Like, do you always feel like you're like kind of this like, like a picture of positivity?
No, I'm poorly assembled. Look at me. But I mean, no, nobody's perfect. And that's on social media. People see the best parts and people show the best parts. We're all going to stumble. We're all going to fall. We're all going to make mistakes. We're all going to, maybe snap back at somebody when we maybe shouldn't have, or say something that it just was off just in the heat of the moment. And I think, when you have a bad day or when you mess up or when you're not the best version of yourself, that's okay. As long as nobody was hurt, nobody was injured, nothing really, really bad happened, you just need to make damn sure that you come back and do better. And, even just for myself, if I have a bad day or if I fall short of my own expectations, I will say to myself, Cookie, do better, be better. And, whether it's, under my breath or out loud or in my head, because I do. I have a high standard for myself. I fall short of that standard sometimes. Sometimes I meet that standards. Every once in a while, I'll exceed those standards. But, you got to make sure today was better than yesterday. Tomorrow was better than today. If you slip up, there's still tomorrow.
Chris, thank you so much for coming in today. Thank you for sharing your wisdom, and thank you for just bringing the positivity into today. We'll see you soon. Disclaimer. This podcast is designed for entertainment purposes only and should not be considered as professional advice. Always consult with relevant experts or professionals for personalized guidance.